On today's episode of Professional Failure.
No, yeah, that was the greeting. And he was very direct, very meat and potatoes, hit you between the eyes. I don't have time to waste. You asked me here. I'm going to give you the feedback that you asked for. And I sat there and I had this biggest grin on my face. And he's like, why are you smiling? I said, there's only one way to go from here. Isn't it great? We can only go up or out of business.
Coming to you from America's Heartland, you're listening to Professional Failure, where we uncover the value and importance of failure, learning from our own missteps and the failures of others. Turn failures into your greatest asset, one failure at a time. And now, your host, Justin Skinner.
Welcome back to another episode of the Professional Failure Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Today's story of failure comes by way of banks. And Kendra and I, early on when we were starting to invest, and actually prior to that, starting our business, we went to several banks and tried to get a loan, and not a huge amount, but we were trying to get a $10,000 loan to buy some equipment to help start our business early on. And we got rejected several times, and it was very discouraging. They kept saying we didn't have enough credit or didn't have enough proof of funds or business history. And like I said, it was very frustrating. And in the end, we wound up finding a bank to do that, but it was required that we had to have someone else co-sign for us on this $10,000 loan. So thankfully, my dad co-signed for us and gave us the chance to, build our credit and start there. And the bank agreed to giving us that $10,000 loan to buy photo equipment. And then the rest is history. So the lesson there is find someone that believes in you, and don't take no for an answer. Just because you get rejected early on doesn't mean that door is closed. Sometimes you just have to find another path there. And again, find someone that believes in you. And I know my dad had a lot of faith in us and was willing to make a bet on that. And he never paid out a dime on that loan. We paid all of it back, but he just gave his guarantee, and it really helped propel us to where we are today. And now to today's guest, Hugh Carnahan. Hugh is the president and owner of Greater Ozark's Realty. He's the head mustache at Hillbilly Millionaire, which is a great brand you need to check out. He's also a finance enthusiast and overall just a very knowledgeable guy. He's a 2-second lien expert, which if you haven't heard of 2-second lien, I would encourage you to look into that. And we definitely dive into that more in the interview. So in today's interview, he talks about being in the military from age 10 to 22. He goes into depth in the 2-second lien process and breaks it down. And then he gives the thought behind his Hillbilly Millionaire brand and what he hopes to accomplish with it. He also goes into what is a process engineer, which I love. So listen for that. And then he talks about why he tries to fail 50 to 100 times per day and the positives that come from that. He also gives his biggest failure, which he thinks is his first marriage, which ended in divorce. So he opens up about that and gives that raw story. And then he talks about why land the size of Kansas needs to be converted. I had never heard this, and I didn't understand why land would need to be converted into farmland and more sustainable land. But he goes into that towards the end. So listen out for that. Overall, you definitely need to check out his videos on YouTube and Instagram. Hugh is not only wise, but he's very entertaining. And he's got videos on anything from beekeeping to mining Bitcoin. So it's all over the map, but every one is very well produced, and he's got an amazing team behind him. So if you're looking to learn something new, Hugh's Hillbilly Millionaire brand is a great way to do it. So without further ado, here is Hugh Carnahan. Hugh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate being on. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So can you tell me a little bit about, you've got the brand Hillbilly Millionaire going. You were the one that introduced me to 2-second lien, which I love. Tell me about your journey to Hillbilly Millionaire.
Man, that would take quite a bit of time. Starts off in 89 when my parents met each other. No, it was a blast. Basically, I went through college. I was in a military school from age 10 through 22. And then when I got to college, I decided not to pick up a contract because I didn't like waking up early and exercising. And also I had being in there since, age 10, I really didn't have any desire to go into the military at that point. I then did the whole normal thing, go to college, get a degree, get hired into corporate America, the American dream, as we're all trained and taught. As we and people in your podcast might know, that dream's mostly dead unless you're in certain industries. And so I kind of sat there in life and I wondered, what more is there? There's something more to life. I can't just, this can't be it, right? And so what I ended up doing was I had moved out to California. I learned some software background. I was customer to customer business, customer support. So it was like the guy you call and scream at. I was the guy on the other end of the phone, but on a business level. Anyways, a marriage had brought me out to California. The wheels fell off that marriage, and I came back to my family's manufacturing business. And so you'll hear later, one of my mentors, he basically taught me everything about 2-second lean. And that was pivot one in my life that was critical. So that was learning about 2-second lean and applying this system of reducing and eliminating waste from your life to my own personal life. So that happened. We'll get into that later too. Then I was working on the estate side. And I tried to, my grand plan was to buy solar panels to become financially independent.
Interesting.
Because that's the biggest thing. Obviously, I know what I'm doing, right? Solar panels, they're going to solve all the world's problems. So I sold a bunch of stock. I had like 180 grand and I was going to buy solar panels with it. And I ended up helping this guy out. And he, with 2-second lean, with his solar panel company, he ended up basically being like, hey, you shouldn't buy my solar panels, turn down the job. A few months later, he strategically closed his business because it wasn't making money. But then he said, go to Bigger Pockets, type in BRRRR on YouTube, and from there, watch that. And so that was the second pivot in my life, is I found out about real estate. Because before it was this big spooky thing, only, rich people do that. I never thought like me, a normal guy, could do that. So from there, I started real estate. My first house I ever bought was 26 crack houses in an area that you're very familiar with, Justin, which is, quote, the north side of Springfield.
Wow.
And no experience.
Those are the first houses you bought was in Springfield?
The first house I ever bought was 26 crack houses in north and west central Springfield. Wow. And I was the what behind the ears guy that was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll take on this challenge because Brandon Turner said the math says it works, so do it. So that's how I started that. Well, about 10 months later, I successfully BRRRR'd a third of it, had all of my money back. We then turned our sights onto motels, and then now I think we're in charge of 199 units. So that was all in the course of the year. The reason I have the Hillbilly Millionaire, I think from time I learned, by the way, about Bigger Pockets and the time that I became a millionaire was 15 months. That was a combination of luck and the power of real estate, and 2-second lean. It was that I applied 2-second lean to real estate, and that's why I was able to scale so quickly in a relatively safe manner. And then the reason I have the brand Hillbilly Millionaire is because I want to kind of connect with folks that are they feel left out. They feel, I didn't go to college, so this isn't for me, even though I did. Or people that want something better, or most of the time you've got super successful restaurant owners or a plumber or someone who owns their own business. They know how to make money, but they don't know what to do with it. And so they're caught in the rat trap. So I try to appeal to people who have a sense of humor and maybe give them tools to come out and kick butt.
I love it. And I love how you're taking the word hillbilly, which I talk with people across the country that, they hear the word hillbilly or they use it as like a derogatory term and like they're trying to demean someone. But I love how you're using it in a positive way. And I also want to go back to 2-second lean because you are a master in 2-second lean. I remember when you first explained this concept to me and introduced the book to me, my mind was blown. So can you kind of explain to people listening what 2-second lean is?
Absolutely. And I'm going to preface this to all your audience.
Yeah.
This is from chapter 7 of 2-Second Lean. Smart people refuse to believe how simple it can be. And so 2-Second Lean, if anyone's read the books Atomic Habits and the book Miracle Morning, it's the two of those basically combined together, but for a business instead of for personal use. And so it's very simple. All day, every day, our team comes together and we basically, we meet. They have a chance to make an improvement and they have to make an improvement. Then we have a morning meeting and then we talk about those improvements as a company. We develop each other and then we go about our work day. It's really about that simple. We have we basically clean and we make one thing, everyone in our company has to do one thing that day to make their own jobs make their own jobs easier. And then we have a meeting and then we start our day. That little bit, it basically pulls off of Atomic Habits, where long periods of time, many changes over long periods of time just moves mountains and mountains of waste. My claim to fame is that I was the first person to bring 2-Second Lean into communist China. And we had the largest morning meeting on earth because I was too dumb to know it was supposed to be hard. The book said do it, so I figured it out. And then people were like, how did you do that? And so we had 350 people every day engaged in 2-Second Lean. And then my second claim to fame is when I came back to the United States, COVID happened. I started the company that I work for now, which is Greater Ozark Realty and Hillbilly Millionaire. And basically we are the first fully decentralized 2-Second Lean company that ever existed. Because before, it's very difficult to kind of grasp that. So we kind of pioneered that.
That's awesome. And I know when I read the book, it talked about how simple it really is, and like what you just mentioned, but just like the steps saved. Like I know when you were talking about or telling me about one of your hotels and how you had your employees, or I forget how you referred to them, but you had them basically. Yeah, what was it?
Process engineers.
Process engineers. I love that. So when you had your process engineers come together and meet, they say, hey, how do we save steps? And they give all this feedback, and you changed closets, you changed how you were washing sheets, and you save these like just thousands upon hundreds of thousands of steps per day. And you kind of broke it down. And again, that just amazed me. And that's the simplicity of 2-Second Lean and just leaning into that.
Well, I'm going to take it further. Is actually what you just described was the sexy part of lean that people usually think of. Oh, I saved this much time. But really, it came down to respecting people.
Yeah.
I don't care. Well, not that I don't. I do. But most people are saying, hey, me as the owner, I don't care if it's more cumbersome for you to do your job and turn the rooms in the hotel. You just do it faster. Go faster. That's what most people say. No, what we say is, hey, I do care about you and your feelings and the amount of work you have to do. I'm going to train you to see waste. And then I'm going to allow you, and I'm going to expect you to experiment and fail and come up with ways to make your job easier. And it was actually the employees. They rearranged the linen area. And all they did was something very simple. They moved sheets from the right to the left that was slightly closer to them. I think it was 3 steps closer. Well, that 3 steps eliminated 114 miles per year per employee that they had to walk. And it wasn't to walk to serve the customer or guest. It was just to walk that extra 3 steps. But the most critical part is I didn't come up with that as the owner. I empowered the team. They came up with the idea to eliminate the waste from their own job out of respect for themselves. And that's a critical difference.
Yeah. And I love that. I love how you empower them, just even down to what you refer to them as. Like you said, the engineers, you call them engineers, they're not employees. And I think just that process of empowering people and allowing them to make decisions on their own is huge. And I've seen it pay dividends in what you do. And obviously there's strong examples of that throughout the book as well.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of shift to another topic. Can you tell me what person or people come to mind when you hear the word mentor?
I sure can. On a lesser note, I have internet personalities who have taught me and educated me. They're my mentors, but they don't know it. Like for instance, Brandon Turner and David Green, I consider would be my education mentors for real estate, and they've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with me. Now, they don't know that because I was listening to their podcasts.
I love it.
But that would be a lighter level. But One person that clearly I see as a mentor is Paul Akers. He's the writer. He's the creator of 2-Second Lean. He basically took lean that's existed for 100 years. Then the 80s and 90s was ruined by corporate America, dog eat dog mentality. He just looked at the situation and he applied lean to lean and brought it back to what we know today, which is making it simple again. And so I'll go into why I think of him as a mentor if you guys have time.
Absolutely, go into it.
So I was in China. I had just moved back, right? Marriage ended. I then ended up being in China. Here we are. My father had passed away in 2014, and I was the company was a sinking ship. It was slowly sinking, but it was sinking nonetheless. And I just hit the internet for help. I said, what do I do? And I knew about lean, and I was like, lean's for these big billion-dollar companies. And then I came across a video called Lean is Simple. And it's this random guy, Paul Akers, kind of middle-aged, starts talking about how simple lean can be. And so I start diving into his content, and then I read his book, and I was basically like, man, this is crazy. At the end of his book and most of his podcasts, he's like, reach out to me. If I'm alive, I'll respond. And I'm like, there's no way this guy is going to respond. So I reach out and I go through like 4 or 5 of the roadblocks they have, right? The gatekeepers, and finally they're like, hey, he has a very limited time. You've got to download this app. It's called Voxer, and good luck. And so they got me in touch with him. Well, because he saw how hard I tried to get there to get in contact with him, he immediately responded and reached out. And I was like, I've read your book. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And by the way, these are the problems I'm having. And I hate to, take up too much of your time, but would you be able to help out? Because I've tried the things that you've already said. And so that really intrigued him, right? And if you guys are listeners to Bigger Pockets, and David Green and Brandon talk about that, right? And big wigs, people reach out to them and they're asking him questions they should already know if you follow him before. And so he basically took it upon himself and was like, oh, you're doing this in China. Okay, so that piqued his interest. And he saw what I was doing and he was like, how did you get it this far without any assistance or help? And I was like, in the book, you said try, so I did. And so this is where I'm stuck. And he's like, you've surpassed where most people have already quit. And so he hopped on a plane, didn't let us pay for it, and flew from Japan, because that's where he was at the time, to Shanghai.
Wow. And
started helping us out. And I love this. This is about 20 minutes into our first visit. We're standing there. It's a cold February. We're huddled around our blast furnaces that are melting aluminum. And he says, Hugh, listen, I've been to over 108 countries. I've been to over 4,000 manufacturing facilities. And this is the most up place I've ever been in the world. And
China, referring to China.
He's referring to my company and
me. Wow.
After I invited him there. And he's like, and I've been to Kazakhstan. And you know what? This is all your fault. Kazakhstan, they didn't know any better. You do. This is your fault. And I was like,
not the greeting you were expecting.
No, yeah, that was the greeting. And he was very direct, very meat and potatoes, hit you between the eyes. I don't have time to waste. You asked me here. I'm going to give you the feedback that you asked for. And I sat there and I had this biggest grin on my face. And he's like, why are you smiling? I said, there's only one way to go from here. Isn't it great? We can only go up or out of business. And by that time, we had already implemented a lot of his book. But he was a very tough mentor. He said it like it was, but he never stopped helping anyone, not just me, but anyone who was willing to help themselves. And he really instilled that in me. And because of that, coupled with the 2-Second Lean, I was able to really shape and hone the focus, just like a magnifying glass, right? The same amount of light comes in, it's how you tweak the lens that determines the focus. Once he got me focused, then it was like, okay, now we're kind of on a level playing field, and we made tons and tons of improvements. So even today, I still call him and give him a ring, talk to him about other things, and he'll pop in, and yeah, I owe a lot to him for that.
That's so cool. That's such a fun story. It's fun to read his book and then hear that side as well. That's awesome. Well, let's kind of shift to the topic of failures. Can you tell me how failures have played a role in your success to date?
Absolutely. So this is going to sound weird, but I fail 50 to 100 times a day, every day. And I encourage and expect my organization to fail. Because if they don't fail, that means they're not trying. And so we have a mantra, which is fail fast, fail often, and just do it, try it. Also, Bob Taylor of Taylor Guitars was Paul Akers' mentor. And he would always say, anything worth trying is worth trying, or sorry, anything worth doing is worth doing what?
Again and again?
No, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And I was
that's
like,
good.
That's really weird. What's that mean? And so to spot check to see if Paul's company was everything he said it was, I just called their line and some random person picked up the phone. I think his name was Christian. And I was like, hey, Christian, what does this mean? I wasn't even asking about any of their products. And he's like, oh, that means that you should just try it. Like, just experiment, before you make it out of metal, make it out of wood, see if it works. Before you make it out of wood, make it out of cardboard to see if it works. Because you'll find out if it doesn't work right now before you wasted the time to do the engineering to bend a piece of metal to do the thing. And so that was one of those things. So I fail continuously. I empower the company to fail. And if I don't see failure, then I know something's wrong. And so at that point, I am actually failing because that site's not doing stuff. So then I'll go figure out, it's something deeper is going on. Is it a level of training? Is it a mismatched SOPs? Is the wrong leadership in charge? Does the leadership lack the training? So to really push that, the experimentation forward.
Interesting. I love it. Well, can you tell me a specific example of your biggest failure to date and the lesson you learned from it?
Biggest failure. I love it. I'm going to go super deep and personal, be an open book. Biggest failure I've ever had in my life is my first marriage. So that was me being, I'm going to chalk it up to me being young, inexperienced. Both of us were at the time. And there were red flags going into the marriage, but, I kind of brushed those aside. It was like, oh, this is a non-issue. Things will change after I'm married, very 23-year-old thinking, very 22-year-old thinking, because I was. And I really learned an extremely high amount about myself and what I want out of life. When you're in a failing marriage and it's very, very overwhelming, you think about things. And so I had a lot of time, about 2 years, to think on what I didn't like. And so the biggest takeaway from my marriage was how I'll never let this happen again, right? So I learned things like, I compromised my career and everything I was going to achieve to follow her career. That's because she was in the military, and I totally get that. That was a sacrifice I was willing to make. But then it was, I started blocking my friends off. People that, had my best interests would tell me things. And so I slowly started walling them out. And then I, would compromise just too much of myself. And so I learned to be highly selective and safeguard what I really value in my life. My personal freedoms have a lot more self-respect. And I learned to be humble, to admit, hey, I got myself into this, right? This was my fault. Both of us were young, and it just wasn't the right fit, is really what it came down to. But I saw the red flags, and I thought I was, smarter than my gut, right, if you will. And so coming out, I really established what I envisioned life to be. And it was a very painful experience. But again, fail fast, fail often. It was a nice 2 years, 3 years of a lesson that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And I got to take that with me, to forward future relationships, and not just like romantic ones, but everything. I won't be pushed around in certain ways, or I'll compromise in other areas I wouldn't have thought to before. So
yeah, no, that's really good. Well, do you plan on getting married again, or is that kind of deterred you from that?
No, I absolutely plan on it. A lot of people get freaked out. It all comes down to communication and being with the right people. And especially now, I'm so hardwired that everything's a process based. It sounds very cold, but I'm able to look back and reflect on what went wrong and kind of tweak the road to come out with a better outcome, or do my best to come out. I don't have any control, but I know what went wrong last time. I'll be open-minded, have the communication. And
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Another lean takeaway, it's a core value in the lean world, is there's givers and takers in life. And if you want to be happy, get rid of the takers. And so unfortunately, and that's everything. Get rid of them as your friends, get rid of them as a spouse, get rid of them as family, if you can, right? But basically, if you surround yourself with givers, life's going to be just a blast. People that are in, the GoBundance circle and M1, and there's these tribes of people that come together, and everyone's a giver, right? And that's probably what got them to be so successful in the first place. So much of us are weighed down, and no one's ever given us permission to be like, why don't you just stop talking to that person? Like, yeah, they're your brother. You're not going to cut them out of your life, but you don't have to hang out with them. And that was a principle that was a big takeaway there was, pre-screening. It's okay to be selective.
For sure. Yeah. And I completely agree. The thing that I've been thinking through lately is how can you take a taker and make them a giver? Is it possible? What does that look like? Because it's a balance, because I want to be around givers. I want to be a giver myself. But at the same time, there are people that I know that are takers now that I just wonder how can I switch their mindset to let them see a different perspective in life? Or is it even possible?
Justin, I think that lots of people, you have lots of dictatorial regimes are trying to change the mind of other human beings, and it's just not possible. I think, from Nazis to the CCP to, Putin right now, what they're doing, they're trying to change the minds of human beings. And I think you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think if they want to change, they can. That's the hardest part that I had was, I see people with potential. I'm like, man, this guy would be awesome. Or this chick, she could run her life like a boss, but they're takers. And after I met Paul, I just kind of internalized, they'll either come to it on their own or they won't. I can provide the best value I see, but I can't justify. If let's say you're a boss and you have a team full of givers and there's that one taker, your whole team feels it. And what you're saying is, I'm willing to keep that taker on to continuously burden their, that negative energy you've seen it. You've seen it happen on teams. You've probably been on teams with it. Yeah. You know who those folks are. You're saying, screw you to the givers on the team if you're willing to put up with a taker like that. So I'd be very careful and be highly selective. And that's kind of a thing is, if you have someone that's borderline, right, and they're just not sure, maybe it's because they were burned a few times in life, so they present themselves as a taker, but they got to come to it on their own. At least that's my opinion.
No, I think that's really good.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll give them all the training, but I'm not going to force anyone to do anything. They have to come to it and do it on their own.
Yeah.
And if they do, I have their back.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Well, what about like during your biggest failure in marriage? How did you get through? Or tell me how you got through the discouragement, because obviously you were discouraged during that time, I assume.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's Admiral Sitwell paradox. He basically says you have to hold out hope that regardless of the situations, you have to hold out hope that you will prevail in the end, while simultaneously being able to look at the brutal facts. And I think I just never gave up hope. I knew that I would be okay. In that case, the marriage specifically, I throw myself into hobbies, and I would trying to get to Maslow's hierarchy 5, self-actualization through hobbies, because I kind of felt trapped there. But I would still talk to my friends. I just wouldn't be as deep with them, and they knew that as a red flag too. So it was actually great. My friends, the moment that I was like, hey guys, I'm getting a divorce, they had already talked about it all beforehand. We're like, this is going to go south at some point, and they were able to be my support net immediately. So I indebted to them for that, and yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So, basically what I'm hearing is friends and just future, like being able to be in the present, but looking in the future and having that hope.
Right. Now, we're dealing with a lot of, and we'll get into that here when we come to my small mistakes, but a lot of frustrations are happening right now within the real estate world, and it's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah,
But
go ahead and go into that because I know you sent me a text yesterday that was really interesting. Go ahead and go into that failure.
So what I would consider a small failure is yesterday I effectively lost $40,000. And this is one of those a portfolio I got with the 26 units. One of them came back. And last night we had somebody, or 2 nights ago now, we had somebody burn down one of the structures that we own. And it was a series of arsons and fires that are running around. People are going down there, burning down the houses in North Springfield. And so one of my big failures one of my small failures is that I could have addressed this problem back in February when I knew that the house went vacant. But instead I put other things at a higher priority. And because of that, it bit me in the butt. And so had I addressed it right then and there, yeah, I'd still be out the same renovation money, but I would have turned it. People would have known the place was being kept up. No issues there. But instead, I let it go too long. Then word got out that it's vacant. And then people, we'll kick one group of people out, a new group will be in there the next day, kick another people out. Then we'll have entrepreneurial ladies run a whorehouse out of our facility for like 3 weeks before we catch them, and that kind of thing. So that's a small failure we had. Again, I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, we have emergency reserves. Man, we really don't want to use this on a renovation. We want to use it to prop the company up in an emergency. In this case, it kind of is. And so then we can't sell the property because it's got, it's really messed up, or we can, but it'd be at a super loss. So it's just kind of over and over those little things, being able to zoom out and say, hey, regardless of how difficult the situation is, I will know in the end I will prevail, that my team will prevail. We're going to overcome it. I don't know how, I don't know what that looks like, while being able to look at the brutal facts. Like, this thing's bleeding us dry. We have a very limited funds in our operations account. We got to make some hard choices, and we'll make it through it. So
yeah.
Stockdale paradox, I think. It's in the book, but it's great for those that have read it.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Well, kind of switching from failures, what goals or projects that you have coming up that scare or intimidate you?
Man, I have a goal, and maybe your users can help me get there. I have a goal of scaling my YouTube channel up to past 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize that. I want to get the word out to more people and help as many people as I can. I'm also writing a book. That scares me because you're putting yourself out there. It's called Why You Failed at 2 Second Lean and How to Fix It. And a lot of it goes into my definition of failure. You guys probably can get is very positive. The only real failure is not trying.
Love it. Well, the book's exciting. I didn't know about the book. So when do you have it scheduled to come out, or what's the timeline with it?
The timeline is I have chapter 1 written in an outline, and I don't have anything else written.
That's awesome, though.
But I think I just need to get, put pen to paper. That's very intimidating, putting yourself out there. As far as big projects go, there is, I don't know how much you guys get into real estate, but there's a concept called BRRRR out there, and it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Effectively, you buy a fixer-upper outright, you fix it up, you rent it out, and then you go to a bank and say, hey, Mr. Bank, I have a nice property, give me a loan against it. Mm-hmm. And then the tenants pay off your loan for the duration of the loan. I found a way to do that with farmland, and the farmland basically will pay for itself. Sorry, not only will it pay, the hardest part why no one doesn't do it with farmland, or why people don't do it with farmland, is because farmland can't pay for itself. Yeah. There's a guy who's doing it, and he's getting it to pay for itself, or at least break even. But the impressive part is it's called restoration agriculture. It's not just sustainable agriculture. It reverses climate change. It builds soil. It does not take inputs. And this guy, it's the 2 second lean of farming is what it is. Interesting. This guy cracked the code. He figured it out. What intimidates me is I can see it from a systems perspective. I can go after it, but you have a $1 billion chemical industry that has a target on that guy's back. And so, but we got there because you can make money. So I guess I'm intimidated. How do we show other farmers that they can make money by not using those inputs, by improving the land and for future generations? And that guy goes into it. It's a whole different thing, but I'm intimidated because the scope of that project is effectively the size of Kansas. Like actually the size of Kansas needs to be converted to make a usable difference. I get an opportunity to be involved with that, of reshaping land the size of Kansas. So
That's really interesting. I'll definitely keep up with that. That I can see how that's intimidating.
Right. And it goes back to, I think Brandon Turner says it, don't let commas scare you, because it's all back to the fundamentals. I'm basically letting commas scare me. The fundamentals are there. They're solid. They make sense. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's really a lot. We're not talking about an 18-unit apartment complex.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about 26 crack houses. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of acres of land. So
yeah. No, that's super interesting. So, well, I know you're busy, so I will be very aware of your time. So here's the last question for you. Can you tell me what you look forward to telling yourself 5 years from now?
Man, you caught me by surprise. I didn't get that one in the in 5 years from now, I'm going to say that it's going to follow my vivid vision. That I have a company, that I am financially independent, and my company is fully financially retired. That's my goal, is actually we should hit it this year, which is basically my company can operate off of my base of my company can operate off of the cash flow generated by all the real estate it owns. That everyone on my team is a millionaire, that we're working 3 days a week, that I have a kick-ass personal adventure running around with my significant other and run around visiting friends in foreign countries, helping them out with 2-second lien based stuff, and that I'm in shape and eat healthy. So that's what I'd like to tell myself I did 5 years
I love
from
that.
now.
And I love the fact too that it's not just about your company, it's about the people within your company that are helping grow that. You're empowering those people and you're rooting for those people because you want them to be financially successful where they can go out and they can have their own adventures as well.
Right. And in my and have the time, they have the money and the time, right? I think my bad goal, right? Not a real goal, but like a nice to have goal to pursue is that I'd like to be a 57 millionaire.
Yeah.
And $57 million is a millionaire adjusted for inflation to the time that the word millionaire was invented in 1719 in Mississippi. So adjusted for inflation, it's a roughly $57 million. And so I was like, I'd like to be a true millionaire in the sense of the word. Because if we were talking in 1990s, I'd only be a 400,000-aire right now.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's super interesting. I've heard that inflation thing too with when millionaire was invented, but I didn't know the number. So 57 million is the number after inflation or
right.
adjusted for inflation. That's
basically it was adjusted 1719 until today. But of course I did that calculation like in 2020. So we've had inflation since then. So maybe I have to be a 74 millionaire now.
Yeah. Maybe getting ready to crest 100 million. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
But I want that to be a byproduct. I'm not pursuing that actively. That's the byproduct of growing and developing people, and developing my team, empowering people to make change. If somebody hears this podcast and they pick up the book 2-Second Lien, or they learn about BRRRR, and they go and alter their life forever for good, now all of a sudden that person has the freedom to develop others, or the freedom to be a good husband or wife, the freedom to be a good father, but they may not have had. And that's really, I'm at that point, even though I'm really young and just starting my career, that I decided I don't need money. I'm going to have just enough. Whatever else is just going to be the byproduct of helping other people. So the more people I can help, the better.
I love it. The byproduct of a giver. That's what I'm hearing. I love it.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been great. If people want to learn more about Hillbilly Millionaire or about 2-Second Lien or you, how can they find you?
You can find me by following the YouTube channel Hillbilly Millionaire, or I have a website. It's called hillbilly-millionaire.com. And that's where you can reach out to me to book us for conferences, book us for speaking events, bring us on site to speak to a company. Last year, I went to a company in Chicago and we turned I was there on site for a week, and we basically took them from a $400,000 operation yearly to a $650,000 operation yearly, just by moving a few machines around and providing training. So it's definitely worth it. But again, that's the sexy stuff that sounds cool. Oh, look at what we were able to do. The real meat and potatoes is setting the system in place that trains the people, so the owners don't have to be the ones that are constantly in the trenches.
I love it. Well, you do so well at the systems, and I would encourage anyone to check out Hillbilly Millionaire. I know I've seen some of your videos, and it is highly entertaining. And honestly, it's not just entertaining, but there are meat and potatoes in it too. It's just really good content, and you make it really fun. So good job with all that.
Well, thanks, Joe. Yeah, with these finance channels and stuff like Bigger Pockets, there's like education channels and entertainment channels, but there's very few entertaining, educating channels. And so that's kind of why I did Hillbilly Millionaire. I want to, be in an American flag Speedo with a flamethrower, driving a deuce and a half around the property and talking about real estate. Like that's stuff that people will be like, wait, what? Because it's going to appeal to the person who never thought I can be something more than I am. I like mudding. Well, I want someone that likes mudding to think that they can own 3 houses and be financially independent. I'm trying to get the word to the masses by being entertaining.
I love it. You're doing a good job, and I look forward to seeing more content. And if there's anything I can do to help too, just let me know.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks for checking out Professional Failure. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information or to connect with Justin, check us out online at www.professional-failure.com. We hope you learned something valuable today, and we'll see you next time.